6 months ago, I said that the RME ADI-2 DAC FS was one of the best audio products ever made, and while I thought that that was the endgame DAC and amp for me, it turned out that the more capable of the RME's offerings was something that I actually had a very good use case for. So today we are going to check out RME's ADI-2 Pro FSR Black Edition, and this is not an Apple device where they would just add Pro to a very consumer device to make it sound more capable, but when RME adds Pro to something, they really mean that it is designed to be used for professional use cases. But this is not just a device for audio professionals, and even for regular people like us, the ADI-2 Pro offers many features that make it a worthy consideration for anyone looking to buy an ADI-2 DAC. The ADI-2 DAC costs around $1,300 or 1.1 lakh rupees in India, while the ADI-2 Pro costs $2,000 or 1.75 lakh rupees on Ansata.net, where I bought this from. So there is a serious difference in their price, but the ADI-2 Pro really does things that you won't believe. RME themselves classify it as an AD-DA converter, and while that definition is technically correct, it really doesn't give you an idea of the possibilities that you have with this device. Now, if you are just totally unfamiliar with these black boxes and you are wondering why they are so expensive, then you should really check out my review on the ADI-2 DAC, where I explain all the features in a more basic way, because this video is going to be a little more technically advanced than usual, and if you are interested in this device, then I am guessing that you must already know about the basics. Hey guys, I am Siddharth, and by the end of this video, you will become an audio engineer. The ADI-2 Pro again has a rather simple unboxing experience, and inside it you get a quick start guide along with an exactly 100-page manual that is very well written, and it is actually surprisingly interesting to read. Then inside a smaller box, you'll get a power cable along with the power adapter, a remote with many customizable buttons. You'll get this breakout cable for digital I/O, which we will talk about, and finally we get to the ADI-2 Pro itself. The ADI-2 Pro FSR Black Edition is just a black box, so there isn't a lot to talk about that, but the overall build quality is great. It is made completely of metal with grills on the side for ventilation, and the grills also let you see the orange LEDs that look like the glow-in-tube amplifiers. At the back, it has 4 analog outputs. 2 of these are balanced XLR outs, while the other 2 use the unbalanced quarter-inch audio jack. We also have servo-balanced analog inputs on the Pro version, which accept XLR and TRS jacks. Then for digital I/O, we have optical in and out ports which support SPDIF and ADAT, and ADAT can actually deliver 8-channel audio versus 2 channels on SPDIF, so there is an important difference. We also have a DB9 socket here, which is not there to connect your old monitor, but the breakout cable that you got in the box can be attached here, and this will give you access to SPDIF coaxial in and out, and AES-3 in and AES-3 out. AES is the professional digital interface that you see in those professional studio monitors. The power adapter port we have here is also lockable. On the front, you also have 2 very high quality headphone amplifiers with dual 6.35mm sockets, and in addition to being usable for headphones, these jacks can also be used as line outs for speakers, which enables some really advanced use cases which we will discuss. These dual jacks can also be used with an adapter that turns this into a balanced amplifier for your headphones, and you can also use both of these as balanced line outputs for your speakers, and we are just getting started here. There is of course a power button on the device. Then we have a big volume knob in the center, which can also be used to switch between different outputs with a long press. Lastly, we have 2 smaller knobs that can also be pressed, and you will also use these to navigate through the menu and change settings. They also allow you to quickly adjust the bass and treble of your tracks, and the frequency and the Q value that they affect can also be changed, so that really makes this feature much more usable than regular bass and treble knobs that only work on fixed frequencies. You'll also find 4 buttons that let you enter different menus, and you can also add shortcuts to different functions on these. Now you will see a lot of people saying that the ADI-2 Pro is very complicated to operate, and while learning to navigate through its menu system does take some time to get used to, it's not as intimidating as it may seem like initially, and you can always refer to the manual, which actually explains things in a very simplified way. This is actually way easier to operate than some other DACs without screens that also have lots of options. The 2-inch IPS LCD display is actually necessary here to be able to control and monitor everything, and in addition to having brightness and color tint adjustments, you can also enable a dark theme like your smartphone, and you can also enable auto dark mode, which turns off the screen and the LEDs after 3 seconds. We have different screen modes which you can cycle through on the device, which let you monitor the playback on different analog outs with a 30-band audio analyzer. There is another screen with a more simplified view of the output state and levels, a screen to give you an overview of the quality of the signal that the DAC is receiving, and there is an additional screen on the Pro version which gives you an overview of all the audio ins and outs, so you can easily monitor the levels on everything when using this in more complicated use cases. Now, while the ADI-2 DAC had one of the AKM4493 DAC chips, the ADI-2 Pro actually has 2 of these chips, and that really opens up a lot of possibilities that you just can't have with regular DACs with a single DAC chip. But because of it having 2 DAC chips, the analog outs are also named in a way that can be a little confusing. So the main line outs at the back and the right headphone jack on the front share the same DAC chip. So these outputs cannot be controlled independently, and that's why they are named main12 and PH12, but the headphone jack on the left is using a separate DAC chip and you can use it completely independently, so it is named PH34. RME allows you to use these 2 chips individually, so once you turn on the multi-channel mode on the device, your PC will actually see 4 individual devices that you can output to. 2 of these are digital outs, but because your PC detects 2 individual stereo DACs, you can operate these as separate devices and play completely different audio tracks on them. So if you are doing something like DJing, you can have one stereo track playing on the main speakers, while you can use the headphone out to pre-listen to a track that you may want to play next, and this should also let you use the ADI-2 Pro to output 4 separate channels together for a 4-speaker quadraphonic surround setup. Now we'll get to the equalizer section soon, but because these 2 DAC chips can have individual presets applied, you can actually connect a subwoofer to the PH34 jack, go into the EQ settings and select high pass filter for main speakers to feed them with high frequencies and a low pass filter for the subwoofer to feed it with low frequencies. There are some limitations for the EQ in this use case, but it should be fine for most subwoofers. You can even use the PH34 jack as an unbalanced line out to connect the ADI-2 Pro to an external headphone amplifier, which you may want to do for using something like a tube headphone amplifier, and by doing this, you will also have the separate EQ settings automatically applied when switching between headphones and speakers. Each of the headphone outs on the ADI-2 Pro offer 1.5 watts of power per channel at 32 ohms. So even individually, these are really powerful headphone amplifiers that will drive most of the headphones on the market to ear damaging levels. And it's not just about the power, but the specs on these headphone outs are also insane, and they provide very clean and distortion-free power to provide a very high quality and uncolored signal to your headphones. So even for audiophiles, these headphone amps are really great. You can also connect 2 headphones to this together and control their volume individually, which wasn't possible with the ADI-2 DAC, which only had 1 chip. So this was one of the main reasons I bought this for, because as a headphone reviewer, I can compare the sound quality of 2 headphones. You can also listen to 2 headphones together with another person, and you can actually play 2 different tracks on 2 different headphones because of the 2 DAC chips inside. But this goes to a totally next level, because if you use an adapter like this, you can use both of the headphone outs in balanced mode, and in addition to almost doubling the power to 2.9 watts per channel, the ADI-2 Pro uses a very advanced balanced out mode which uses both of its DAC chips individually for left and right channels. This means that the whole signal path from DAC to the headphone driver is balanced and the signal inversion happens in the digital domain. Keep in mind that many of the balanced headphone amplifiers that you see are not actually balanced internally, and they just use the balanced out connection for more power, and they might not even have individual headphone amplifiers for the left and right channel like the ADI-2 Pro. I really don't know of any other device that uses this kind of an advanced balanced setup. If you know about it, then do let me know in the comments. Now, most of the headphones that you may use with the ADI-2 Pro will get driven very well with the single-ended mode of the ADI-2 Pro or the ADI-2 DAC, but one exceptional headphone that is one of the most demanding headphones is the headphone by Head Audio. And this headphone can really benefit from a powerful source because it has special air motion transformer drivers that are used in speaker tweeters. So I was using it in the single-ended mode of the ADI-2 DAC, but I always felt that it could sound better if I had a better amplifier. So because of this, I got the ADI-2 Pro, and the balanced out mode on this really gave this headphone the power that it needed to sound its best. Even though the headphone was driven well in the single-ended mode and it got very loud on it, the balanced connection did make its soundstage more defined and they sounded fuller with a complete low end with more impact and weight in their bass. Now if you need more power, you could get an external amplifier with the ADI-2 DAC instead of getting the ADI-2 Pro, but the problem with that is that it will complicate your setup and add a lot of cables if you also use speakers in addition to headphones, and a high quality balanced amplifier with the ADI-2 DAC will take the overall cost too close to the ADI-2 Pro. You also lose out on the automatic changing of EQ presets to different outputs if you do that, which was very important for me. But another very important reason for going with the ADI-2 Pro is the safety features and the overcurrent protection that it has. I have heard some very horrifying stories about headphones getting damaged because of the headphone amplifier of some very popular brands, and headphones like the headphone cost almost as much as the ADI-2 Pro. And I realized the importance of these safety features very quickly, as the first adapter I got for this was faulty and it actually short-circuited the amp on the ADI-2 Pro, but thankfully the overcurrent protection kicked in and the ADI-2 Pro stopped the output and asked me to remove the headphones. And just thinking about the headphone or the ADI-2 Pro getting damaged gives me a mini heart attack, so I really cannot overstate the importance of safety. It even gives you a warning if you plug in a headphone when you have high power mode enabled, so you can save them and your ears when plugging in something sensitive like IAMs. This second custom adapter for me was prepared by the good people at ansata.net, but ready-made adapters for this are also available if you aren't able to get it from your retailer. By the way, do give this video a thumbs up if you've been finding it helpful so far. The ADI-2 Pro FSR-BE also features an MRC remote like the ADI-2 DAC, and the 22 buttons on it really let you control a lot on the ADI-2 Pro. You can change volume, change channel balance, bass and treble settings, enable or disable EQ or the loudness feature, among many other things. With the ADI-2 DAC, you had 4 buttons on the remote that you could set custom shortcuts to, but the ADI-2 Pro enables you to use 7 of these buttons as shortcuts, and you can set all kinds of actions to it like dimming the audio, making the signal mono, switching outputs, and switching to different DAC filters, among other things. RME also publishes codes for different universal remotes, so you can also use them if you need to. One of the main reasons that got me interested into these RME devices is the 5-band parametric EQ present on both of these devices. Some of the headphones I have, like the HE4XX, are just not enjoyable for me without using EQ presets, and you can improve the sound quality of almost all of the headphones with EQ. While you can use software solutions for this, they may not work in all use cases, and having hardware level PEQ is much better and convenient. The equalizer can also be used to add room correction to your speakers, which really makes your speakers sound much cleaner, and once you start using it, you really won't be able to go back. The ADI-2 Pro also supports dual EQ, so you can have separate room correction settings for your left and right speaker, and for people with hearing problems who hear a little differently from one of the ears, this can also become an amazing addition. You can store 20 EQ presets on this and rename them, so this is really going to be enough for most people's headphone and speaker collection. Different presets on different outputs on this device also gets applied automatically when you change outputs, so my Adam A5Xs always have room correction applied when audio is playing through them, and as soon as I change the output to my headphone, the EQ preset specific to the headphone gets applied. And this is why I didn't want to buy an external amplifier with the ADI-2 DAC, because if you use something like the Mackie Big Knob to switch the XLR output between a speaker and a headphone amp, the ADI-2 devices won't detect that you have done so. So every time you change outputs, you will also have to change the EQ preset, and that really makes life much more complicated than it needs to be. So the single box solution of the ADI-2 Pro just works perfectly. ADI-2 Pro also has features like crossfeed and loudness that I have talked about in detail in the ADI-2 DAC video, and you can also do things like changing the width of the sound and inverting its phase. The bass and treble function of the ADI-2 Pro can also be used to add 2 more bands to your PEQ, as their frequency and Q value can be customized. So you can have 7-band parametric EQ if you are a really big audio nerd. And that takes us to the performance of the DAC on these devices, which is identical between the ADI-2 DAC and the ADI-2 Pro. And these are really top tier performers, again with their steady clock FS technology, which you can learn more about in this video by clicking on the card. The ADI-2 DAC has one ES9028Q2M chip, while the Pro has 2 of the AKM4493 chips, and this should stay on AKM for some time, unlike the ADI-2 DAC. And there's a lot more than just the DAC chip number to what kind of sound you actually get. So if you are watching this in the future and they have some new chip in it, this review should still be very relevant. These are 32-bit 768 kHz DSD direct capable devices, which is of course extremely high-end. I have mentioned in my ADI-2 DAC review how people struggle to describe the audio quality difference between the ADI-2 DAC and the similarly priced Quad Q-Test, which is only a DAC. And again, the ADI-2 devices are aiming for highest accuracy in their presentation without adding any color, because these are pro audio devices. Now when we are talking about the ADI-2 Pro, at $2,000, maybe you could get something that is only a DAC that sounds a little better, but you really have to think about how much of a difference you would be able to hear, and I would highly recommend that you audition a $2,000 DAC and compare it to this before making a decision if you are confused. With my Adam A5Xs that don't have DSP crossovers, the imaging with the ADI-2 Pro and the ADI-2 DAC is really exceptional, and you really get that 3D holographic image that I have praised these speakers for. With my headphone, the DAC performance is again very excellent, and I get a very accurate soundstage with a very detailed and natural sound. The ADI-2 Pro also includes different filters for its DAC and its ADC, and I wasn't able to hear a difference between these filters with my HE4XX earlier, but with the extremely resolving nature of the headphone, the difference between the non-oversampling filter and other filters like sharp filter is quite noticeable. And the non-oversampling filter is what I mostly use with the headphone now, because the vocals on it sound more natural, and anyone who finds these DACs to sound too analytical should really give this filter a try, because even though it does sound a little less detailed than other filters, the smoothness and the more natural presentation is something that some people would buy a different DAC for. So even though I didn't consider this choice of filters to be that important earlier, I do think that having a non-oversampling filter is a great addition. The ADI-2 Pro also features a very high quality ADC at its back, and it really has many applications. So one use case for it is using it as a preamp, which means that you can connect any other analog source to it and it can output that through its analog outs with amplification. So you can connect a turntable to it, on which you can also use Equalizer, and with that you can have room correction on any source that you connect to it. It will be redigitizing everything, but you can just check what sounds better. To test the quality of the ADC, I plugged in the line outputs of the ADI-2 DAC to the ADI-2 Pro's analog inputs, and the sound quality, even after the additional ADDA cycle, was very surprisingly great. Then I also recorded a FLAC track with Wasapi playback with Adobe Audition and saved it as a WAV file, and then ABX compared both of the files to see if I could hear one file being played with any loss in quality, but I was not able to tell which file was the original and which file was re-recorded with the ADC. So to recheck that I wasn't the only one who couldn't hear a difference, I also posted both of these files in my audiophile group and asked people which of these two files sounded better. And in a very surprising turn of events, the ADC recorded file got the highest votes. So with that, we can definitely conclude that the file recorded with the ADC doesn't sound noticeably worse than the original file, which was a surprise for me, as I always thought that adding a ADDA cycle would make the quality noticeably worse. This was recorded at only 44.1 kHz, which I think is the wrong way of recording, but I think that the ADC on it can record at up to 768 kHz, and it can also record in DSD, so you can have your vinyl collection recorded in extremely high quality. I will actually include links of a demo track with its original file along with the files recorded with the ADC of the ADI-2 Pro, so you can download them and check out if you can tell a difference between the different files. So with how good this world-class ADC is, it is not a surprise that it can also be used for measurements of audio equipment, so the next time I review a DAC, I could also include its measurements. So audio engineers, reviewers, musicians and producers can of course take advantage of this, But another use case that I was interested in was recording voiceovers for my videos on this, and that is also possible if you have a powered source like this Rode Wireless Filmmaker kit. So this audio that you are listening to has been recorded with the ADI-2 Pro's ADC, and you can see that you can also monitor the ADC through one of the screens. Now this isn't a microphone preamp that many people may assume it to be, so if you want to plug in an XLR mic or an electric guitar, you will have to add a mic preamp in between. The reason that we don't have a mic preamp with 48 volts phantom power here is that there was just no space left on the PCB because this is already an extremely densely packed device. If RME had to add mic preamps to this device, they would also have to add something very high-end, which would have made this device significantly more expensive, and considering that this is already not a cheap device at all, I am personally okay with that. But you can of course easily add a mic preamp and connect it to its analog ins, and for my use case, an entry-level mic preamp like the ones in this Focusrite Scarlett work very well, so if I want to plug in a guitar and play something, I can do that. I can also record my digital piano directly to this, so there are tons of use cases for the ADC for a lot of people. RME's MediFace drivers for the ADI-2 series are also really great. In addition to providing error checking for USB, they also have really good compatibility, and with programs like FooBar, you can also use advanced channel mapping to send the same audio signal to the ADI-2 DAC and ADI-2 Pro. So you can compare 3 or more headphones if you have multiple of these RME devices, which is very useful for headphone reviewers or people who design headphones. RME regularly updates the firmware on their devices, sometimes even adding new features, and they also feature a safety BIOS, so you don't have to pray to your gods while updating the firmware. So in conclusion of this very long video, while the ADI-2 DAC had impressed me by the options it offered over any other device that I had used, the ADI-2 Pro is even more surprising of a device to use because I really didn't think that a single device like this could have so many use cases. The top tier performance is what I was expecting from it, but the sheer intelligence and thought that has gone into making this device is really something that I cannot overstate the impressiveness of. RME doesn't give you vague snake oil statements about their technology to tell you how revolutionary their products are, but they give you scientific explanations and numbers and logic. This isn't a device that is as easy to use as other DACs, but it is something that makes you learn more about things. It demands you to be more attentive than you have to be with other products, but then it also rewards you for the knowledge that you have by allowing you to shape your audio experience in the exact way that you want it to be. It shows you why the Germans are considered to have the most refined taste in engineering. Now when it comes to deciding whether you should go for the ADI-2 DAC or the ADI-2 Pro, the ADI-2 DAC is obviously a more straightforward device for audiophiles, and it even has a super low noise IEM port for the more sensitive of the IEMs. I personally find the headphone jacks to perform very well with the IEMs that I have, but I have also heard that some earphones like the Campfire Andromedas do have audible noise with the headphone jacks. So if you use a lot of IEMs and you don't want the extra features of the ADI-2 Pro, the ADI-2 DAC obviously makes more sense. But if you need something that is even more powerful, or you want to have a balanced headphone amplifier, not needing to add another box to your setup is something that I personally value a lot, and if you were to buy an external headphone amplifier to add to the ADI-2 DAC that performs as well as the balanced out mode of the ADI-2 Pro, it will be taking the total cost quite close to that of the ADI-2 Pro. So even if you don't need its other features, this feature alone could be worth considering to jump up to the ADI-2 Pro for. The ADI-2 Pro also offers a completely independent second DAC chip which can have many use cases for audiophiles. You can have 2 extra speakers or a subwoofer attached to it. You could audition different headphones and compare them to your existing headphones. The ADI-2 Pro has AES out, which could become very useful with those higher end studio monitors. It offers way better SPDIF and coaxial out than your motherboard's optical port, and you may not have a use case for these features now, but having the ADI-2 Pro will keep you prepared for anything that you may get your hands on. So this is a device that will really future-proof your audio setup, and for that reason, I think that it is completely worth it to jump up to the ADI-2 Pro FSR-BE if it is affordable for you, because getting top tier components of multiple types with 2 DAC chips in such a compact single box unit really makes it a very good value for money even at its very high price tag. Now, just like other components, the stocks of these DACs are also a little limited currently due to the global situation, and prices have also increased a little. So it's not just computer components that are being affected due to the global chip shortage, but the good news is that Ansata is offering a discount on these RME devices, and if you use this coupon code on the screen while ordering, you will be able to get a 5% discount, which on 1.75 lakh rupees product can become a lot. And you should also really check the video description, where I will try to have some other limited time discounts along with the details of the process. Ansata is the official distributor for RME products in India, and I bought both of these devices from them. And if you frequently buy high-end pro audio gear, they are a name that you must be familiar with. And that was it for this video. Let me know which one of these DACs you would go for in the comment section below. You can also check out my reviews for the headphone and the Adam speakers. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.